Apparently, you have, here's one for you, the widest waterfall in Europe.
Yeah,
That's a random.
we do, and unfortunately, I never visited. It's called Ventas Rumba.
That's,
So
I was going to say.
You're going to pronounce that spot on it. Welcome to another Good News for Armagh podcast. It's really good that you're joining us today, and we're really glad to be joined by Inga Hutchinson, and she's going to share a little about her life, who she is, where she's from, and how she came to faith and what that means to her. So it's really good, Inga, for you to come on with us. We appreciate it. And of course, we're welcome Paul. How are you today, Paul, tonight?
I'm doing okay, John. I'm doing okay. My son had a little picture for me when I got home today, a nice drawing. Came downstairs, all excited, big smile, give me a picture. And it's basically me wearing a dress with lipstick on that says "Daddy is a girl." So I think I don't know what the social workers would have to say about all that.
That's very progressive.
This is it. And that thing that you know me so well.
Very good. Love the pictures. Good. Well, Inga, you're really welcome. Good to see you. Just for everyone listening, tell us a wee bit about yourself, your family, what you do, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. My name's Inga, and I live in Kildare, but I was born in Latvia. So I lived there until I was 18 years old. So I finished college and I had a wee job in Riga, which is the capital city, and I absolutely hated it.
What did you do?
So I was working in catering, so restaurants, a pub, a hotel. So I had a few jobs and I just couldn't stand the big city. So, and my dad was actually working here while I was in college. So he said, sure, why don't you come over for a wee while, see if you like it here, earn a bit of money, and then you can go back if you fancy. So I came over, and a few months later, I met my now husband. So I never left.
Very good.
Yeah. So,
what do you do with yourself now?
I work in a local primary school as a special educational need classroom assistant. So I go to school every day, which is lovely. Actually, I enjoy school more now than I did whenever I had to go to school myself.
Very good. And what do you do? What do you do to wind down? What's your hobbies?
Don't really have much time for hobbies, to be fair. I have two kids who are 9 and 7, so my hobbies currently are taxiing. So I do a bit of driving back and forth from Kildare to Armagh, and swimming and music classes and stuff like that. Okay. Used to draw, used to bake, so hopefully one day I'll have a bit of time for that again.
What's your thing to bake? If you had a few hours, what would you do?
Oh, anything with chocolate.
Anything with chocolate. I think I remember. Did you make a souffle one time?
I did, yeah. That was actually the first time I had you over, you and Ashley, and I made a chocolate souffle. Yeah.
That's right. That was really good. That's right.
It was a fluke, though.
Oh, was it? Oh, was it?
Beginner's luck.
They're hard to do them things. Like, so well done.
They are.
And you draw a wee bit as well. You're artistic.
I do. Yeah, I do draw a bit, but just haven't had the time for it, unfortunately.
Okay.
But yeah, I do enjoy it.
Okay. Life gets busy.
I'm a bit disappointed though, Inga. I expected you to be more Latvian.
You expected me to be more Latvian, so yeah, what would that be?
Well, you sound like you're from Armagh. I was looking up some things about Latvia there. And, right. Most people speak 2 or 3 languages, and is that true?
Oh, pretty accurate, yeah. I speak 3. So
Ooh. See?
Well, I have to say my Russian is fairly rusty. Like I'd be embarrassed if I had to speak to a Russian person now, but you don't use it, you lose it. So
Right,
that's
like
what
your
happened.
drawing. If you don't use it,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose it. And then
Oh, thanks.
apparently you have, here's one for you, the widest waterfall in Europe.
Yeah.
That's a random.
We do, and unfortunately, I never visited. It's called Ventus Rumba.
That's
So
I was gonna say.
You're gonna pronounce that spot on, aren't you?
I've got a couple more for you. Apparently,
right.
so the women in Latvia are really, really tall.
Well, I'm 6 foot, almost 6 foot. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Apparently, the average height's 170 centimeters, which I think is top.
Yeah.
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 So
Very good. You've done your homework.
another one. The person who invented denim was Latvian.
No way.
All of our genes and everything is because of a Latvian.
Really?
There you are.
Awesome.
Well, there's
Sorry?
another fun I can tell you. You know Crocodile Dundee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His character was based on a Latvian man too.
Really?
Yeah. Well, there's actually two men. There's a Latvian dude, and then there's an Austrian fella, I think. There's two of them, and there's a bit of a debate happening between who it actually is, but I'm obviously cheering for the Latvian guy. So
There you go.
those watching can Google.
Very good. So tell me a wee bit more about Latvia, if you don't mind. Just even in terms of like, because Paul's told us some of the fun stuff and the important stuff as well.
Are you asking me, John, or are you asking?
You could as well, absolutely. Maybe Inga's a wee bit more proficient, Paul, than Google. Sorry, than you.
You can answer this, Inga.
What's it like in terms of economics, or what's it like in terms of spiritual interest as well?
Now, economics wise, I don't think I could tell you what it was like whenever I left. I was just out of high school, college, and living the high life beyond my own means kind of thing.
Yeah.
So wouldn't really have an accurate understanding, plus had no interest. But at the moment, the situation is not too bad economically. Like Latvia wouldn't be the poorest Eastern European country. And by no means that I came from like a really, really poor family. We were quite working class growing up. But yeah, there were definitely times when things were tight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of Latvians, if there's any going to be watching, will sympathize with having a lot of potatoes for dinner. Was a usual. Cooked many different ways just to make it a bit more interesting. Spiritually, Latvia is a very interesting country in terms of spiritual things. There was certainly like the eastern part, southeast part of Latvia is quite Catholic, and then the rest would be Lutheran. But I think the Soviet Union had a bit to do with kind of pushing religion out of the way for a lot of people. So the generation before me actually didn't see a lot of church. There was a lot of churches burnt down and religion wasn't allowed. And so, yeah, I think
so Latvia would have been under the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, exactly.
Very
so
communist.
Yeah, but there was a lot of, also the spiritual kind of things. My mum herself would have went to healers and to, fortune tellers and stuff like that. But there was Christianity to some extent as well.
Okay. So coming over here at 18 must have been a bit of a shock then. In terms of like spiritually, like church at every corner and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually realize how Christian this country was until I met Philip, my husband.
Right.
So I think when you're not Christian or you're not religious in any sense, you kind of, ignorance is bliss. You don't really know it's there. You're not looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed there were a lot of churches. I went all around them. But to me, they were just buildings.
Okay.
You know, there were churches in Latvia, so I didn't really kind of connect the dots.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
you met Philip,
yeah.
your now husband, and he had a Christian influence.
Yeah, so he grew up in a Christian family, so he knew about the Lord Jesus and he knew about salvation and repentance, and you know, he knew everything about that. And yeah, he was the first one to tell me about his family and how he was reared and what his family believed in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was my kind of first little intro to Christianity.
Well,
What did you? Sorry, John. What did you think? What did it sound strange, or like growing up you didn't have much exposure, so it must have sounded a bit weird.
Yeah, well, you see, at that time, Philip wasn't, he would have professed salvation as a child, but he was backsliding at that stage, so he wasn't actually going to church. So the things he was telling me were quite, you know, light, and like he was uber helpful. There was things I was going through. He always reminded me, you know, that that's somebody speaking to you when you're feeling down or you're really thinking about something and it's bugging you. That's the Lord speaking to you.
Okay.
And, you know, I would have experienced that in Latvia too. You know, God was kind of like the good doctor. But yes, Philip introduced me slightly, but I really only started properly thinking about what Christianity was about whenever he introduced me to his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and they were asking us to come to the meetings and stuff like that, and we would go just to kind of appease them for a while, and then yeah, that was my full proper like experience at church and hearing the gospel full on 100%.
what was that like?
Oh, I hated every minute of it. Hated every minute of it. And then when Phil told me that his mom and dad go to church like twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, I was like, oh, these people are nuts. Like they're so religious, like loonies. So yeah, that was my thoughts.
And so then, obviously, you didn't stay there. You didn't, did you?
No,
Okay,
no.
good. So
No,
what was what was the progression going from very strange to believing?
Yeah. It took a wee while. It took about 4 years, I think, from first hearing the gospel in 2008 to becoming a Christian in 2012. So roughly 4 years. And it was a mixture of things, really. So coming from the background I was from, my childhood, I wouldn't say was normal. It was, you know, there were marital issues between my mum and dad, and, you know, a bit of maybe trauma, and kind of, I was quite a cynical and angry young woman. So whenever I was told that I'm a sinner and I'm bad and that I'm not good enough to go to heaven, that really did not sit well with me. So anything that I was told, I just rejected immediately. So I'd say it was pride had a big deal, and also judgment, because I had kind of built up an idea of what religion is from what other people had told me about. I hadn't actually ever opened the Bible myself or read anything in it. So kind of ignorance is bliss. And then lots of things happened over the 4 years. I had a really rubbish job that actually gave me issues with anxiety and insomnia and lots of other things. So through all this, and Philip and I were fighting like cat and dog. I think we broke up at one point like 4 times during 1 year of dating. Yeah, that was was bad. And all through that, Lynn and Wilmer, Philip's mum and dad, were a constant, like an anchor to me, even though from their perspective, I came into their family as, you know, an unbeliever, as somebody who was totally against everything that they were saying. And they could have easily just rejected me, but they didn't. They done the exact opposite. They accepted me and they helped me, even though at times, boy, you know, I definitely didn't deserve it. And then also, no matter how much I hated going to those gospel meetings that I was invited to every Sunday, and I went like once a month to keep them happy, like all the people there were always including me, trying to talk to me and kind of make me part of it. So slowly but surely, I kind of started noticing things about Christianity. I thought, well, these people have problems. They react different to me. Why? You know, these kind of things started creeping into my head. And then there was one day, I can't even remember when, but I kind of thought, right, I'm just going to withhold judgment. I'm just going to withhold it and forget about everything that I have said or heard from other people. And I bought myself a Bible for Dummies book off Amazon. Have you seen them? I think there's a book for dummies for everything.
Okay, yeah.
So Bible for Dummies, because it was also an intellectual kind of doubt that I had about the Bible, you know, whether it's historically accurate, who wrote it, you know, why are people following the Bible? Why is it different to other religions like Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism? What's the difference? So at that point, I think the tide was turning, and you know, that's when I really started feeling God's presence. And then I went to a mission in 2012. And within a week, I was so convicted that this is the right thing to do. I have to become a Christian. And I had to go up to the speaker and say, right, I need to do this now. So saved 2012. So
I remember that night actually. I remember that night you became a Christian. I remember my one memory of that is actually walking out into the foyer and seeing Wilmer and Lynn and Philip, because Philip, your husband, he came back that night as well, and seeing the four of you kind of hugging in the foyer. That's my one real memory of all of that. Like, so it was real cool. It's really, really interesting to hear your journey from pretty much next to nothing to Christianity and seeing it like lived out in front of you and being loved, and that's really, really interesting to see that. Like, so you became a Christian in 2012. What changed about your life, or how's your life been since you've come to faith?
There was a dramatic change initially. And I think a lot of Christians will recognize this, the kind of the joy that you have when you get saved is just unreal. I say my character changed overnight. That kind of cynical, angry person was gone. Well, she was still kind of there, but it was just such a drastic change overnight. I started seeing the world the way that the Lord wanted me to see it. Trying to see the good in everything, trying to see Him in everything. I was a heavy smoker. I quit smoking within a month. which was a big change for me. Definitely without the Lord's help, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah, lots and lots of changes, and just that desire to know him and to know the word and to kind of seek him and to know what he wants me to do. Yeah, but I can't, life doesn't become a rose garden, as they say. There's been a lot of, rotten things that have happened over the years. It's not easy being a Christian. The Bible says that, at times Jesus comes between you and your family, and it definitely put a strain on my family and my relationship with my mum and my sisters, because this was completely alien to them. Born again Christianity was not something we had heard of before, so they literally thought I had joined a cult. So really, I gained the Lord, but at the same time, I lost my family.
Okay.
And it's not that they stopped talking to me, but they definitely, they were weary, and I totally understand, because I was them 4 years earlier on. So, I understood where they were coming from and their thoughts. So, yeah.
So you said something to me a while ago that's kind of stuck with me. You just said it in passing, and I thought it was really an interesting kind of, an interesting thing to say about Christianity, because I asked you how you're doing, and how you've been in Christianity, and you said, "I'm the happiest I've ever been, but the saddest I've ever been."
Yeah, it's the weirdest feeling. It's like a paradox, but you're so glad that you are saved, that you know the Lord, that you have been revealed this amazing truth, that you are created by a loving God, that you are meant to be with him forever, and that he has provided a way for you to know him. And then to have that and to share that and to have people just totally reject it, that's the sad bit. That's what makes me sad as a Christian.
Yeah.
Whenever you said, Inga, that whenever you first went to these gospel meetings, you were someone, obviously it was all unusual to you, but the thing that stood out was they kept saying that you were a sinner. Basically, you were wrong.
Yeah.
So, and that was a bit offensive. So do you wish now that people hadn't said that? And if you're talking to one of your friends or family, do you not tell them that bit because it would offend them? Or how do you view that now? To tell somebody that they're a sinner?
Back then I hated it, but I am so grateful that somebody did tell me that. And now whenever I do get an opportunity, and when, I do talk to people about my faith, I do tell them, listen, we are sinners. We are born sinners, because you need to look at a small child and see that the sin is in us from birth. I actually have a funny story about me and my younger sister when we were children. I think I was about 6 and she was 4, or I was 7, she was 5. But we both got Barbies. And in Latvia, we have a thing called name day. And so every day on the calendar has a few names on it, and that's your name day. Right. So my name day fell in very close to my younger sister's birthday. So we both got these really nice Barbies, but hers was a slightly better one because it was her birthday. So after about a week, and my sister was so pedantic, like she kept her toys so well, I had cut my Barbie's hair. I had dyed it with felt tips. I had broken the legs, so they were bending back and forth. And I decided that I fancied her Barbie. So Mum watched us through the door, and I worked my sister like I don't know what. I was like, oh, your Barbie's hair is so boring. Mine's so much nicer, so much cooler. Like she looks like, a pop star. And then your Barbie's legs only bend this way, mine bend both ways. And I had her worked to the point where she was begging me to swap with her. You know, and like for a 6-year-old child, you know, no mother teaches their children to be conniving and, you know, sneaky like that. No mother teaches that. It just shows you that we are born that way with a tendency towards evil.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it hurts, but it is true.
Yeah, well, truth hurts. And sometimes you need to be cruel to be kind. And I can't remember who said this, but that's one thing that stuck out to me. I remember Wilmer saying, the biggest trick that the devil ever played was to convince the world that he doesn't exist. And
Kaiser Soze said it.
There you go.
Kaiser Soze.
There you go.
Usual suspects.
There you go.
Wonder does Wilmer know that that's what it's from?
Tell him that. It's absolutely true, though. The greatest trick that ever pulled was convincing the world that he doesn't exist. Okay, well, I've actually exhausted my questions. I'm trying to think of one question in the end. Here we go. Paul, you go for it now.
Yeah. So how old are you now, Inga?
Is that what you asked?
No, this is the build up, the lead in.
All right.
Don't worry, I'm young enough not to be worried about being young.
She's young enough not to be worried.
I'm 34.
Ah, see, grand. So what would 34-year-old Inga want to say to 18-year-old Inga that was living the high life in Latvia? What would you want to go back now and say?
Don't be so ignorant. Don't be ignorant, and don't take everybody's words at face value. You know, critical thinking is a big thing.
But what about people say that Christians don't think critically?
Yeah, it's, you know, and I would have thought the same. I just assumed Christian people were kind of sitting, you know, neatly in a pulpit with a Bible open on their lap and with their hands crossed.
Like John.
waiting for God. Waiting for God to do stuff for them. You know, that was my kind of image that I had in my head. And it's, yeah, people assume that when you become a Christian, you kind of hang up your intellect and just follow like a sheep. Where I can tell you from my own experience and from every single Christian that I know, that is the exact opposite. And actually, the Bible itself speaks that, you know, you're to love your Lord, your God, with all your heart and mind and soul. So it's your mind. It has to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, critical thinking. I have never read more books in my life since I became a Christian. So it's definitely not true that because you're a Christian, you don't, you know, you're just kind of giving up on thinking in general.
And that would be a good challenge actually for someone listening to this. That if they have heard, you know, stuff about Christianity, it might not be true, and you could be missing out on the greatest experience of your life just because of hearsay without checking it out for yourself. So we'll say, if you've got questions or if you want answers, do look at the other podcasts. Do go on to Good News for Armagh, because there's good stuff there about thinking about the issues and thinking about where we do come from and thinking it through. So I do encourage you for that. That's a really good good point and really good question, Paul, to finish on. So well done. Listen, thank you so much, Inga. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on with us, and Paul as well. We appreciate it. Thank you for listening as well. And if you do have any questions, if you do have any comments, if you do have anything that you do want us to even do a podcast on, do get in touch with us, and just do hope that this has been a blessing to you today in your journey to come to faith in Him. So thank you so much for listening. Slán go fóill.